Moving on a little bit now, I wanted to go over to my Witmer's Critique series. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, that I was going to do one on the HBO limited series Task, as the series just wrapped up this past weekend, this past Sunday, as a matter of fact. The last episode of the series or season, however you want to kind of phrase it, happened this past Sunday, and I kind of wanted to do a Witmer's Critique of what I thought of the series, as it was definitely one that I thought was very good, and I thought it was one that could be a good kind of Witmer's Critiques. Last one I did was on the Z30 Nikon that I'm currently shooting this on. In terms of like movies or TV shows, kind of stuff like that, kind of Witmer's Critique reviews that I usually do. I haven't done one since I did one on Shrinking, not Shrinking. I did that earlier this year as well, but the last one I did was on White Lotus Season 3. That was the last one I did in this series, but this time I'm going to be doing it on Task. So without further ado, let's get in on it. Before I get into this review, I also want to say, like most of these reviews that I do on movies and stuff like that, there will be spoilers, so if you want to remain spoiler free, I want to continue watching on, or if you have already, I just kind of want to know down below what you also thought of the series. So like I mentioned, this series was on HBO. Mark Ruffalo, if you don't know like what the show is, I'll do a short kind of synopsis. Mark Ruffalo is probably the biggest name out of the whole series. The rest are pretty much kind of unknown kind of actors and actresses, which I kind of liked about it, that there was only one really big kind of character, so that made it a little bit more, to me, a little bit more authentic of what the characters were going through and everything. But again, just a short little over synopsis of what this series was kind of about. It was centered around three guys stealing money from a biker gang, the Dark Hearts, which we later find out why they're doing this, as it is revenge for the killing of Robbie's brother, one of the guys who was stealing all these, were stealing from them, and what they were stealing was money from these biker gangs and everything. This causes the FBI to get involved and put a task force together. That's where Mark Ruffalo's character Tom gets involved and everything. Put a little task force together to try to figure out what's going on. And while this is going on, the last robbery that they three do, it does not go well, as during the whole kind of situation, they go to this last biker's house. They kidnap these two bikers that are in there, or two biker gangs that are in there. They end up killing two of them, or three of them, because another one comes a little bit later with a duffel bag. And they end up killing one of the guys who were stealing stuff as well. And then they end up leaving with that duffel bag, which they later find out that it's not money that's in there, but it's drugs. And not only that, that in the basement of this place, there was a little boy, Sam, who Sam then saw the guys with their masks off, which then makes them take Sam with them. They don't kill him or anything. They don't want him to like rat him out because they see all his face and everything. So they give him a little place to kind of live for a short while they try to figure out what to do next because of everything that kind of goes on. And that's pretty much how the series kind of starts, and throughout it you kind of see how each character kind of goes throughout everything, how the task force is going to try to figure out what's going on with this whole kind of situation. And the Dark Hearts wanted to figure out who took their drugs and everything, and want to get revenge on the person. And then obviously Robbie trying to figure out what to do with the drugs that they have and not the money, and how they kind of get rid of it and kind of move heat that they were really hoping to kind of get out of it. But that's pretty much a good kind of synopsis of what kind of happened. And again, there's going to be more kind of sort of, spoiler kind of stuff I'll kind of share a little bit later on in terms of everything. But overall, what I kind of liked and didn't like about these stories, in case you don't know how I kind of do these, is that's kind of how it goes. Just kind of give you a short synopsis, give you what I kind of liked, didn't like about the series and everything. So overall, if I had to kind of give it like a Rotten Tomatoes score, that's how I usually do these ratings, from like a 0 to 100. I kind of give it a low, probably 80, probably like an 84. I enjoyed the story. The story was definitely my kind of the pinnacle, and the character development, as you kind of, the way that it was shot and everything was It's definitely different than any other kind of criminal shows. There's similar kind of shows like it where you see kind of one side of it and you're figuring it out as characters are figuring it out. Where this series, how it's different is you see every character involved, so the audience knows before the characters do of what's going on, why these characters doing it, and everything going on. I also like the ability to kind of showcase the character development as well of each character, where while there were quote unquote bad guys, good guys, kind of those kind of tropes you assume, and these kind of shows, you also kind of feel bad for them because there's this underlying theme of kind of like family and stuff like that. Even with the Dark Hearts, even though they're a biker gang, you also kind of see kind of a family element into that as well. To Robbie and his family dilemma and why he's doing it because of the killing of his brother. That was in the hands of Jason, who was kind of the lead kind of person of the Dark Hearts and everything, and what Tom's going through with his own life and everything, with his adopted son in jail because of the killing of his wife and everything, and just how the family dynamic is going through there. Just everything about that I just enjoyed immensely. Again, the way the story was told, I enjoy the character development. Those are two very high watermarks, I'd say, for the show. But some of the stuff I wasn't like the biggest fan of, and some of this may also just be because of the way the story was told. Lacked any real like surprises, and when there was one, it was pretty predictable. One of those being, I wasn't really a big fan of like Grosso being figured out as like an informant for the Dark Hearts, who was one of the people in the task force. I wasn't really a big fan of that just because I felt that was very predictable. It was a very predictable kind of thing that was going to happen. He felt like the kind of character who would be the informant, so that didn't really caught me off guard. The other one was when in episode 6, when there was the big shootout and everything, and again, spoiler, but when Stover ends up dying because Jason runs him over with his car, with his truck and everything. I had a feeling she was going to end up dying because the way that ended up with the episode 5 was kind of ending up and everything, and the task force was kind of splitting up. Also, and Stover were kind of on their own. My personal thinking was going to be, she was going to figure out somehow that they were, he was an informant for them, and to keep her quiet, he was just going to take her out just because of it. But that was obviously not how it ended up being, but it still was kind of a predictable just because how her character was and everything, very scared and very timid, not very confident kind of thing. It felt very predictable that if anyone was going to die in that scenario, and I felt like somebody was going to, she felt like the most likely one, and it just ended up being the case. Even some of the fight scenes, I felt like they were pretty predictable on how they were going to end and everything. So those were kind of some of the issues I kind of had and everything. And also at the end of episode 6 too, when he gives them or throws the duffel bag into the water and they trying to find it because they assume the drugs in it. Kind of had a feeling again that there wasn't going to be drugs in it. It was either going to be fake or there was going to be nothing in there, kind of thing. That was another thing I felt was very not my like favorite kind of thing. But I will say and that's kind of why I kind of put it more. And the other thing too is I felt like there was a few big like wow, that was kind of great moments. And there was one moment that kind of surprised me the most, and that was when in the finale when Grosso actually ends up killing Jason during that big shootout that was going on with Maeve, and it kind of surprised me a little bit. But the only thing there that I found strange is because he got shot in the scene prior to that. I don't know how he didn't, die, but whatever. I get its story and everything that it just didn't end up happening, and Grosso didn't end up dying. I also felt like the series also, there were a lot of questions I had at the end of it. There was just a lot of questions still that I had on mind. One of them being what happens to, or what's the sentence to Tom's adopted son. Again, I know I'm kind of all over the place when I'm kind of giving this kind of review and everything, just because that's just kind of how my mind kind of goes. Just kind of go to one kind of thing and just whatever. Just how the speech Tom gives near the end during the sentencing and everything was so great and everything. Just It was well written. It was well performed by Mark Ruffalo. It was definitely a very high water moment, very emotional. You can kind of tell everything, and just the character change he went through throughout the series and everything was definitely, again, a huge watermark. But the one thing I found strange was because they made an emphasis that his adopted daughter, his sister and everything, was going to say something, or she was going to, or potentially going to, but she never does. So I'm confused why that never really ended up happening. And just essentially, again, we get kind of an idea that he's going to be let out at some point, just because Tom's going to be, they made an emphasis to say that Tom's going to take care of him. That's why Tom didn't end up adopting Sam and everything, just because he realized that it wasn't really fair and he was going to have to devote so much attention for when he did get out. And yeah, that's the kind of the biggest kind of question that kind of came out at the end. But again, it's definitely a great series and everything. I would still highly suggest it. I understand if you aren't and not really big into the suspense and kind of crime shows like this or whatever, or violence. I could definitely understand it if you weren't like the biggest fan of that. You may not like the show, but I'd still give it a try, just because it's one that the story and the characters behind them and their motives and everything, it's so well written that it just makes it worthwhile and everything. And if you can get through that part, I think you would definitely enjoy it. It's definitely one of those shows as well that gets better as the season goes on. The last 3 episodes in particular were definitely great, because the first few are definitely kind of building the story, kind of telling you the story, kind of getting to this point. But once the clues and everything starts getting honed in, you figure out that Robbie is the one who did it, and the characters are figuring out it was Robbie and everything. That's when the kind of story and even the more suspense kind of takes place. But overall, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I would give this an overall an 84. Again, I keep mentioning the story arc, the characters, Mark Ruffalo, and that speech at the end during the sentencing was so emotional and it's so great and everything. I would definitely highly suggest it. Again, the minor things I'd have is that it is kind of very predictable, and again, that could just be because of how the story was written, and just because of that, since you as the audience know before the characters know what's going on, that it's kind of where it is. Again, I would love to know if you've seen this before, if you saw Task as well, what you guys thought of it. Am I a little rough or too rough with it, or what you like in particular, what you didn't like in particular? I would love to know that. But yeah, that's all I really have on the Task review.